Welcome back to Desert Island Slabs, the podcast where we delve deeper into the psyche of collecting. I invite some of my favourite collectors on. Every episode, a different collector, and I invite them to take us on a journey. Take us on a journey to the deepest recesses of their collection, but also the deepest recesses of their soul. I give them a task. The task is to choose the 8 items in their collection that they would save above all others, that they would take if they were being banished to a theoretical desert island. My guest this month is Matt Hendler, a long-time soccer collector who works for PSA on the brand protection team, and he also provides soccer expertise for PSA as well. He is an eclectic hybrid soccer collector that collects many items, and to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure the introduction was entirely necessary, as I think anyone watching this will probably know who Matt Hendler is, but nevertheless, I'm very honoured to have him on Desert Island Slabs. And Matt, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure, and just before we start, I mean, you know, we're going to go into a bit more detail with each of the items and your thoughts and what feelings they evoke. But what when obviously, because you probably, without being too, conceited, you've probably seen a few episodes maybe or some. So what went through your head when you were asked to choose your 8? What happened?
Well, first off, I've seen some episodes, and I hope I can live up to the champ. But it's a tough act to beat. But when I was when you had first messaged me, and actually loved the question because a lot of times you have so many items when you're collecting, you're just always buying things and trading things, and it's great to sit down and actually sit there and realize what you have and what means a lot to you and why you even wanted it in the first place. So for me, when I was thinking about my 8 items, it was a lot about either a personal attachment. So some of them were items that meant a lot to me, or physically I used in some way in the past, and bring back a specific memory of a good time, a good moment in my life. While some of the other items are items that I consider to be, items that if I sold, I'm not sure I'm going to ever get back. I'm not sure if I'm going to find the right one again. And then some of them are just, like I said, they just bring back a story or memory of something, and in honor of, remembering that I might have purchased something to remember that moment. So that's kind of how I decided to select those 8, and it was definitely, like you use the word eclectic. It's an eclectic selection, which I love.
Yeah, I can't wait to discuss some of these items. And when I think of you, or with all the content you share and things, I do think of Brazil. I do think of your Brazilian soccer collection.
Yeah.
And probably we'll start with an item of, I don't even think it's arguably, I think the most famous Brazilian football player of all time. So should we have a chat about that?
For sure. I'm sure you're going to show a photo, but do have it with me, which is the Pele. Not the best camera here, but I have the 1958 Jose Innocente Balas Centro goal, which is one of his rare rookies, or if you want to call it a rookie, because it is a 1958. He does have a 1957, but most collectors consider 1958s as rookies. And it's an amazing sticker, amazing image. Has him super young, the beginning of his career in the Santos kit, which obviously he was the heart of Santos for 15 plus years. Really revolutionized the club, and it's an amazing item, and it's actually an item I've never really been able to tell the story of how I got it, which I think is very unique. So this is, I guess, my moment. Moment to tell the story.
This is the time.
So once I got back into collecting after college and eventually got into soccer, I had always wanted to get a nice Pele rookie. And I did get a few. I got the Titulares and the Aquarella, but I really wanted to elevate, my Pele collection to get one of the rarer rookies, one of the ones that's, a pop 5 or lower. So, I had some connections in Brazil, and, I'd been buying from some people, just general Brazilian stickers and cards. And I had one seller reach out to me and said, "Hey, I think I have the chance to sell you this Jose Innocente Pele." And immediately I said, I'm interested. And he said, to be honest, I want cash. And I was like, okay, well, I'm in the U.S. and you're in Brazil. That's obviously going to be difficult. But this was in early 2021. I had planned a trip to Brazil already, to go to a city in the south just to stay for a month. And I decided, I was like, I'm going to do something crazy, which in my opinion, was a bad idea, but like a risk I wanted to take because I just wanted this Pele so bad, which was I decided, I'm going to message this guy and we're going to meet up, in Sao Paulo. I'm going to buy this sticker from him in person, give him the cash. And so, I I show up in Sao Paulo, and I think it was May or June of 2021, and the seller messages me. We decide to get some lunch, so we get lunch, and downtown
sounds like a
Sao
date.
Paulo. Kind of was. It kind of was. I did wine him and dine him a little bit, and we talked about soccer stickers and the market in Brazil, and so I have the cash with me, which was a very scary thing, walking around with a couple $1,000 US dollars worth of money in Brazil, and last minute he's like, I have these other stickers, if you want I can do a deal if you bring more cash, because it's much better to get the cash than working through the online systems. So I'm at an ATM in Sao Paulo pulling out money, totally like such a movie scene of like just the ridiculous American being an idiot. But we get lunch, and he's like, I have the items, and I was like, all right, I have the cash. And he's like, well, I don't want to do the deal here in the restaurant, because if someone sees you giving me a stack of cash, there's a good chance I'm gonna get robbed, or I'm gonna, there's gonna be a scene. And I was like, okay. So I was like, well, so what are we doing? He's like, let's go to my car, and it's easier in the car. And I was like, I'm already too deep into this. And I was like, but
I would be getting scared now. I'd be like, someone's going to be going pear-shaped.
I was like, again, this is a risk. I was younger at the time. Like, I just wanted the Pele. I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to have the opportunity to get one. And it actually came with a Friedenreich. We had a deal with the Friedenreich sticker as well that I had never seen before. And so I went to his car. Luckily, good guy. Like I said, I had known him for a while, and worked with him before, so I was less nervous there. And we were in a nicer part of Sao Paulo, but went to his car, give him the money, like a deal, type of deal that, again, typical American in South America doing something stupid. But give him the money, give him the cash, and gives me the cards, and it was a weird moment because I was like, hopefully everything's good. I was like, I'm gonna just go now, go back to my Airbnb, kind of look everything over. Yeah, crazy story. It's one of the few stickers I've ever actually bought like in person outside of the US. And it's always a risky but rewarding feeling when you get something you've been chasing for a long time, and especially in a way that's not very typical. Because everything nowadays, is online. You just get it in the mail and move on.
And that must give you such a bond with this item as well.
100%. Yeah, it's like getting it in the country where it was produced, where Pele is from. After I'd been chasing it for so long, crazy feeling. And yeah, it's one of those things where it'll probably be in my grave, someday. It's one of those ones, just because of the bond with it, I just don't know how I'd ever let it go. It's such an amazing item. And unfortunately there are 2 marks on it, which if you look at the grade, it does have the 1 MK. There's little X's, and I bought a stack of them, and whoever had owned them 60 years ago put X's on them for whatever reason. to me, it doesn't even matter because of the item. It's just so rare. It's so hard to find that I can easily look past the marks. But yeah, it's a bond that the sticker means a lot to me, and it was the journey. Obviously, adds a lot to that. Just to be able to even get it.
It's like a relic of your pilgrimage. You went thousands of miles to go and get this item, which not many people would do for their hobby. Not that many people would do that,
100%. Yeah,
and you went there, and
it definitely is. It's a crazy feeling. And the last time I was in Brazil, which was earlier this year in April, the same thing kind of happened. I met with one of probably the largest, soccer collector in Brazil. And, I had mentioned to him while we were having lunch, hey, I'm missing this Garrincha sticker. And he's like, I think I actually happen to have a second, I can try and, see what I have and we can work something out. And he messaged me later that day and he's like, I do have it, I'm going to send a moto taxi, delivery. So, I get a call the next day at 10 a.m. and there's a guy outside the Airbnb on a motorcycle with this tiny envelope, with this valuable sticker. Probably the guy's probably like, "What the heck is this?" And it was so those kind of items are ones that it's so much more than money. It's like the journey, the search, the journey, like you said, the pilgrimage to go find some of these things. It adds so much to your collection that I could never give them up. Like they're like the cornerstone of what I collect and why I even collect in the first place.
No, exactly. And I think that's what, in a way, I try and do with my collecting as well. It's almost like I'm trying to liberate things and just create this collection of things that almost I would never sell or would never let go, actually. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do in many ways. But with regards to the item itself, you said it's one of Pele's like less frequently appearing rookies, and you also mentioned that Pele, or before we started recording, that Pele does have quite a few rookies as well. There are quite a few type rookies for him, or very early Pele cards or stickers. How do you go about in your mind? Because you said about the rarity, but how do you go about in your mind prioritizing what you want?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm actually working on something, kind of creating a Pele hierarchy to help collectors who are trying to get into Pele to understand. Because when you search eBay or some of the other sites for card ladder history for like what Pele rookies exist, you type Pele rookie and you get a list. You'll see all these different variations of, you have matchbooks, you have hand cut record journal, you have
Sonrix World Cup story.
Yeah, my favorite collection out there. If there's one set that I could make never have existed, it's that one. Just because I see so many people fall for that. And if you're unfamiliar with what we're talking about, in 1994 there was a re-release of many of the famous Panini World Cup stickers that look the exact same. So people think they're buying a 1970 Pele, and they're not. They're buying a 94 reprint. I hate those stickers with a passion.
The Sonrix World Cup story is like rats in London. You're probably never more than like 2 meters away from one at any point, even if you're in or not in the hobby. But yeah, anyway, I'm not bashing Sonrix. If people like that, then that's fine. But anyway, sorry.
That is fair. I am bashing a little bit, but no, it's so Pele. It's one of those ones where I like to kind of base it on. So rarity, as you mentioned, is obviously very important. Like the 1957 issue is extremely rare. There's a few 1958s that I've only seen 1 or 2 copies of ever. So that definitely plays an important factor. The appearance. So I think, how the sticker looks. Like some people collect the Monty Gum Pele, which I'm not a very big fan of, just because of the caricature, how it portrays him. So there's the appearance. Where it's produced is also, to me, very important. I consider items produced, in Brazil to have more value, just because, obviously, Pele is from Brazil. So to me, it makes more sense to want something where the country that he's from and where he played soccer for most of his career. So those are three of the main factors. Then there's also other things like, some of the shots have multiple teammates or they're action shots, and I don't consider them as visually appealing or as focused on Pele. So because he has so many, you kind of have to take all of these things into account. So there's a lot of different things, and it makes it very difficult. But again, it's the fun of it for me is, because he has so many different rookies, is dissecting, why is this one, more appealing than this one, which I think has changed a lot over time because, when I got into vintage soccer collecting, the Quigol Pele was kind of one of the bigger issues. And now, I don't consider it a top 10 for Pele. So, people's appeal to different things definitely changed over time. And I think we've shifted a lot more towards the rarity and, Brazilian releases.
Yeah, and I think sometimes as well, because obviously things like the Alifa is the one that a lot of people, or the heathen Pele collector, such as myself. I'm not even a Pele collector, but I'm a bit of a heathen when it comes to Pele. That'll be the one that I think of when I think of a Pele rookie.
Yeah.
But do you feel then, because obviously that was Swedish issue, do you feel that there's you feel a like palpable transition away from like cards like that to more Brazilian issued things? What do you think?
It's I guess I should say it's more rarity than Brazilian specific, but because a lot of the Brazilian ones are just inherently rare, then it is a shift towards Brazilian ones. So, a lot of the outside of the Aquarella Pele, most of the Peles from Brazil are just rare. The Alifa is a great item. I do love it. I think in high grades it's obviously like an amazing piece, or even in low grades. But I have noticed a shift, in my opinion, towards people wanting, that Pele that might not come up once a year. It might not come up once every 2 years. And we're starting to see the sale of Alifa, seemingly in every auction. There's at least a PSA 1 to 4 up for auction. So I do feel a shift towards the rare Brazilian issues as people have learned, because even 3 to 4 years ago, a lot of these issues weren't even known, or like they were just kind of like fairy tales of, this collector mentioned that they've heard of this Pele that is black and white that no one's ever seen, and then all of a sudden people see a picture and it's like, that's amazing, like that, that's not my grail. So they kind of have a new grail that they never even knew existed, or only knew more recently that it actually was a thing. So I definitely, in my opinion, have felt like a momentum shift back towards the volumes.
And that's probably also as people become more educated and evolved, and also the ones that are looking for it are probably becoming more and more passionate as well, as they it's not just about looking for an Alifa or a Quigol or whatever. It's more like, for the sake of having a Pele rookie, it's more like, I want to focus on this specific Pele rookie because that's the one I've definitely identified, and I've spoken about it quite a lot in terms of most of the work you do collecting. When you're getting items that you really want, you front loaded all the work before you do it, and then you get it. And then if it becomes available, exactly that this is now my moment. And I think it kind of leads on. Well, we'll keep a Brazilian theme for the next item, who's another bit less famous but very, very famous earlier Brazilian player. So should we have a bit of a chat about your next item?
Sure. It's an amazing item. I love it. I have it here as well with me. Again, image quality not the best, but there we go. This is an Arthur Friedenreich sticker from 1930 from Brazil. So it came in a candy package, which is why if you've ever seen it's hard to find any copies of anyone from this set, but if you see any copies, they're all mangled, wrapped up because they were just shoved in, pieces of candy. There's staining on them. Mine has a bunch of like what looks like chocolate stains on it, which is why it's amazing that it's even, sitting here in my office 80 years later. Just the fact that it even survived. But I really like this one for, again, the story of what happened and how I got this. So, during COVID, like everyone else, I had a lot of time, and I was sitting at home, and when I had really decided that my focus at the time was going to be Brazilian vintage, there was almost no pre-war Brazilian stickers out there. I had seen maybe one or two pictures, again, just from one collector in Brazil, and I was like, there's got to be something. There's got to be just more out there, more to be found. And so I started working with, my contacts in Brazil saying, I'm willing to just buy any common player, any name. I don't care. I just want to see what even exists. Like, if you can find people who want to sell their collections, I'm interested. So one day, someone reaches out to me and they say, I only have a few pictures and they're pretty, they're pretty low quality, but here's here's what they have. And, I'm sitting in Kansas City at the time, and I'm like, I was like in shock because I had never even seen any of these stickers, any of these sets before, just like pictures of them even I had never seen. So immediately I'm like, what's the price? I'm interested. And, the price was at the time a lot of money for what I thought to be just no big names, no, World Cup players, no Copa America players from the early 1900s. So, we decided on a price, and I was like, I just had a feeling. I was like, there has to be one big player, one big card in this whole lot, because there's like 75 to 100 stickers. And so, I order the stickers, and they arrive. And so I'm looking through them, just going through one by one, kind of like, oh, I never heard of this player, never even heard of this team. It is what it is. And then, I pull up the next sticker, and it's Arthur Friedenreich. And on the sticker, it actually just calls him Fried, which instead of his whole last name. So I sat there for a second, and I was like, before I freak out and am ecstatic that I got a Friedenreich, like, let me go back and confirm the picture is him, make sure he was playing for Sao Paulo in 1930. Yeah, pretty much. Which, in my case, for once, VR actually was a good thing, because it seems to ruin all of my soccer nowadays. But so, I do the research, and I'm like, literally in shock. I was like, this is the most insane thing. Like, the fact that I just bought this lot and paid, again, at the time, just a ton of money for just to even have these Brazilian pre-war cards, just because I love the design so much. To find that, I was like in shock, and immediately it was like, this is easily like a top 5, probably at the time like a top 3 card in my collection. Just because if you look through Brazilian collectors or collectors of pre-war, just finding a Friedenreich in general is like it beyond difficult task. Just a playing year Friedenreich. There is like some of his like post playing that's a little more common, but I can count essentially on like one hand or maybe two hands. All of the Brazilian issues. There's one from Argentina. I'm kind of keeping out of this because it's a more popular set, but the Brazilian issued Friedenreichs, you can count on essentially one hand. Like, there's very few. The fact that they survived being stuck in candy, in Brazilian culture is not as much like the United States, where you collect everything, and like a lot of us are hoarders. We hold on to everything, hoping that they become valuable. The culture is definitely very different. My wife is from Brazil, and when I was talking with her grandma last time we visited their house, I asked her, I was like, did you ever have older soccer stickers, older albums? She's like, we did, but we threw them away. Like, they were all like, to us, they were just, albums, like just books, whatever, that we didn't need. They didn't have any utilization. And, she was telling me the years that like they're from the 50s to the 70s. And I was like, oh, this is the most painful thing you're telling me ever. But so when you add in that aspect of it, like the fact that this sticker even, made it this long, is just what kind of makes it amazing. And just the shock of finding it in like essentially a lot where, to me, I was just buying it just because I wanted to even have pre-war stickers, just made it amazing. And, recently there was a sale of a 1922 Friedenreich. It sold for I think 71,000, 70,000.
Yeah.
So it kind of shows that there is a lot of pent up demand. Now, and let me clarify, that one is amazing. Like that one, the design on the 1922 is beyond beautiful, much nicer looking than the one I have. But people who do collect soccer pre-war, Friedenreich is a top 10 player that you want to collect, and just because there's so few cards of his, there's just so much pent up demand that whenever one does come up, it's a very big deal. Just because you just don't even see them. So
yeah, and with Friedenreich, because have you managed to catalogue many things of his? As in, do you like when you go about researching this stuff, like? Is it that you can see like images, or you hear about them, or what? How do you start cataloging Friedenreich for someone, for instance?
when it started out, it was hearing through other people. So, Peter, who's a good friend of mine, he is Brazilian but lives in the United States, and he's also a very big collector of pre-war and vintage Brazilian soccer. And he would send me pictures, like if he heard of one, and it would kind of be just like through the grapevine you would hear. And there was a guy I was talking to on Facebook who was I'm a big Sao Paulo fan, just from my time of studying in Sao Paulo, and I, in a Facebook group, happened to meet this guy who was like a huge Sao Paulo collector. And one day he's like, "Oh, I happen to have this Friedenreich sticker," and so I was like, just crazy. Some of the stuff that's out. So like you just kind of hear. He sends me this picture. You hear about this one that you've never seen before. So what has happened in the last couple of years is Peter, who I mentioned, he created a website called BrazilianSoccerCollection.com, and it's done a great job of documenting a lot of these items. Luckily for me, I've just seen some of the other ones through photos, like I said, where just through different collectors I've met, they've been like, "Hey, I happen to have this Friedenreich." They'll send me a picture, and I'm like, never once in my life seen that before. So it's just kind of talking to people all the time, and getting pictures and just knowing what's out there. So I kind of have a built up like photo gallery, but also that, like you said, that visual, like I can just picture the ones that are out there just from having been sent them from collectors.
Yeah, and for any, because I think probably, I mean, I made a bit of a Brexit joke off air in terms of my focus on my collecting and things, but I think maybe because, speaking about in Britain, and I think people that watch this actually, there's quite a high US viewership actually on this, but in Britain, I think because we have quite a strong like vintage like names in our mind. I'm not even talking about collecting. I'm talking just in like people like Billy Meredith, Dixie Dean, Steve Bloomer.
Yep.
I'd actually include other players as well, like Huey Gallagher, players like that. A lot of people know who they are. So like Friedenreich, to probably, I may be speaking wrongly, but to many Brits, we don't really know that. He's not like mentioned that often. So why is he such a big deal?
Yeah, he's and to be honest, even in Brazil, there's not a lot of people I've talked to who don't know who he is. But it's his history of one, just being an insane striker, the amount of goals. He's one of those players where it's like they've tried to do his goal tally. There's 6 different methods that people have used, and they bring up 6 insanely different numbers. So you'd have like someone saying like, "Oh, he scored 1,200 goals," and then someone is like, "Oh, he scored 600." So you kind of have to make your own judgment on how many goals he scored. But he was said to have been a prolific striker. Won the 1919 Copa America, with Brazil. And what kind of made him so important was he was mixed race. So one of his parents was of African descent, and one was, I believe, Portuguese descent. But he really broke the race barrier in Brazil in the early 1900s. Soccer was an elite sport, so it had been brought over by a Brazilian who was studying in Ireland or somewhere in the Isles, and brought soccer back to Brazil, and it was a sport truly for like the elites of Brazil. So it was only played by the upper class. But Fried, just being such a good player, kind of broke that status, and kind of ushered in, breaking that race barrier for soccer in Brazil. And unfortunately, there are some like sad stories. Like he would sometimes use rice powder to put over his face to actually appear whiter, to not get as much hate or you kind of blend in. So he's just a very interesting player who, besides just being an amazing player at the time and kind of being the GOAT essentially of soccer in Brazil until Pele. He broke a lot of barriers for who could play soccer and what was acceptable in Brazil at the time.
Yeah, I was reading a bit before this about the rice powder, like you said, about him like straightening his hair before matches and things like that, which is and to excel in such a like cauldron of hate or like racism is incredible, really.
Yeah, it's crazy, and obviously it's hard to imagine what he had to go through to just be able to go and play
exactly,
and do something like that. And so I think that just kind of adds to his story and why so many people are interested in preserving that history and making sure that it's never forgotten, because he did change the game of soccer, like truly probably changed the whole history of Brazilian soccer, and then being who they are today with 5 World Cups. Because if you look at the players that won them those 5 World Cups, a lot of them came from lower class families and were able to excel and train up into the national team and make it at the club level. So he was kind of the person that set the country up for success in the first place. And like I said, he dominated in the South American Championships in the late 1910s. So he's just an amazing player. And if you go back, and sometimes there's a newspaper like resource I use sometimes where I can go back and look at old newspapers. And if you look at the soccer papers from the 1910s and 1920s, like every cover is just him. Like he's like the guy. It's like Messi now, where you just see Messi everywhere. Like that was him in Brazil at the time. So he truly was that guy. For Brazil.
Influential, iconic player that paved the way for many other players that probably we know more, that are more easily or readily available in our brain now. And the next item, in some ways, Friedenreich would have butterfly effect thinking would have had an influence on him. And we're going to have a chat about a little addiction of yours and a player that you quite like.
Yeah, addiction is that's a nice way to put it, because it is definitely a problem. I only have 2 of them with me at home, which is the 1999 Ronaldinho rookie for Brazil. But this is a sticker that, I have a problem. I truly do have a problem. And when I got back into collecting and then soccer collecting, Ronaldinho was truly the player that made me love soccer in the United States. We were talking before we started recording about how did you even get into soccer being in the US when you're competing with baseball, football, basketball, all these other huge sports. And I mean, truly, it is difficult, especially when I got into soccer in like 05, 06. When you would have 1 minute of Sports Center, which, when I was a kid, everyone watched Sports Center in the morning. If we'd have maybe 1 or 2 minutes of soccer, like if we're lucky, or it was just happened to be on like the top 10 plays of the day. But I religiously watched Sports Center every single day, from like 7 to 8 a.m. And I just remember, seeing clips of Ronaldinho, because if there's anyone who's going to make the top 10 plays somehow in the United States out of all the sports and somehow get soccer included, it was him, because, he was just insane and one of the few players that was actually turning eyes here at that time. So I just remember, when they would show clips of El Clasico, which is one of the few soccer matches they ever featured on SportsCenter. I just remember, seeing Ronaldinho and just kind of being amazed at what he was doing. And, when I was pretty young at the time, it really like flicked a switch. And I watched the '06 World Cup. I remember watching it. Remember where I was watching all those games and watching him and just, I think I've always kind of, in my collecting, focused on players that like brought joy to the game. Like I'm a huge Garrincha collector as well, and he kind of reminds me a lot of Ronaldinho, which is played the game for the love of the game, bringing joy to the people. Just free form playing, just kind of feeling it, having it just like naturally as part of who they are, just being incredible. So I think like most Americans, Ronaldinho is probably like a top 5. If you ask like 5, random people on the street, like name 5 soccer players, can just about guarantee 90% of them are going to say Ronaldinho, just because he made such an impact here in the US.
Yes. And then Matt, like, so was it that you got into football soccer from watching SportsCenter, and then that stimulated your interest? Or how did you literally get into it, and then how did you start watching more of it?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I played like very young. It's very common here that you sign up for a rec league and play as a kid. So I was playing as a kid, and then as I said, seeing it on TV, really just got into it, and over time, just started to learn more and more. And then middle school into high school, I met a few people who were like diehard soccer fans, and they're actually on the tennis team I was on, and they kind of taught me about Arsenal. They're the reason I actually am like a huge Arsenal fan. They were like, hey, we should watch some Arsenal games together. Like, you said you like soccer, blah blah blah. So we watched some Arsenal games together, and suddenly like I was like addicted. Like I was watching, the Sky News transfer days. Like that was my favorite day of the year, or 2 days of the year. Was always like the Sky News transfer day back when they were good. And I just became like in around like '09, 2010 became just like that became like everything. Like if you look at my Twitter when I first started Twitter, like I think the first account I followed was Manchester City, unfortunately. And I just became like in love with soccer. So I was just, every day I'd wear a soccer jersey to school. And it just became like my favorite sport by far. It's something it clicked with me, and I just found it to be much more interesting than a lot of the American sports. And and don't get me wrong, I love football, I love basketball, but something about it just made me so interested in all the different clubs, the different competitions, the World Cup, the Champions League, all the different players from all these different backgrounds. I don't know. I just kind of like fell in love with it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I ask about America, but you tell a story that is similar to probably so many of us here, and how we get into it when we're very young. And I was 5 years old. I got upset, and my dad's a massive Manchester United fan, and then that was I was indoctrinated from a young age, such that it's not. I did used to. I'm not going to say, I didn't used to like cartoons, but I would like watch, like literally, like I would watch like the interviews after the game on record. Like I'd get my mum to record on VHS the Sky tapes, and then I'd like watch the interviews over and over again, and watch the match over and over again on VHS when I was like 6 years old, just like obsessed with it. And it's, I think when it captures you because there's so many facets to it. And I can't speak for American sports, but I think the diversity of football, which you mentioned, all the different leagues and countries and things, makes it a truly global sport. And then with this Ronaldinho, who's a player obviously incredibly famous and just a brilliant footballer. With this item, you like have collected lots and lots of, haven't you? And why is that exactly? And is that something you do with other items that you particularly enjoy, or just this one?
Yeah, and I know this is this topic gets people very riled up, so I think I'm going to rile some people up here. When I first bought my first Ronaldinho rookie. You know, it came in the mail, and I was just like, this something just clicked. I was like, besides obviously, like I said, him being a player that is in my top 5 easy, just of players that I you know I care about and like. You know, the second I saw that sticker and it hit me. I was like, I love this sticker. I want to get as many copies as I can. You know, he is like the action picture in the shot. Like it just, I don't know, something about it just clicked. And so it's like, every copy I see in Brazil, like I'm gonna just purchase. Like I don't even care what the price is. You know, I just want to have as many as I can, just because I enjoy collecting it. And I know a lot of people have told me, you know, have said some pretty rude things. They're like, you know, it's ridiculous that you would hoard these. And I'm like, well, one, I put in the work. Like a lot of people didn't. It took a lot of work. Like these, one of the reasons that I don't like to get rid of a lot of the things is because it takes work to get a lot of these items. Like it's not like going to a card shop down the street and buying a Zion Williamson rookie because there's 50 bajillion of them, and you know they're easy to find. These are things where, especially at the time, like these were not just on eBay. Like you had to find someone who wanted to sell in Brazil, you know, work with getting the money transferred, you know, hope that the item even shows up, you know, you're buying from someone random. So, you know, over time, I kept buying them. And I just enjoyed, I think as you'll see, I've kind of talked about a lot and with other items, like I just kind of love the hunt and like love, you know, going and finding these items and the people you meet, you know, who want to sell these items and whatever reason they're wanting to sell. Like a lot of them, you know, a lot of them, like I made their day. They're like, you know, this is crazy that this piece of paper is worth this much money. And I'm like, yeah, it is ridiculous, but I still want it. Yeah, I'm just big on to if you find something that you really enjoy and you find something that for some reason resonates with you. Like for example, the Kaká rookie, I think I have a bunch of copies of that one too. I don't know if I've ever taken a picture of them all together, but I think I have like 10 or 12. And I don't know, it's another one where the amount of work I had to put in, plus my care for that player, plus like just liking that sticker. I think having multiple copies is fun. You know, all of them are different. Like if you look at that, they're all different grades. You know, they all have a different path I had to go to get them, which a lot of times was a huge pain. Like I said, was never just like an easy, you know, you just click a button and it shipped. Like it was always like a whole ordeal of having to transfer the money. So, you know, I know a lot of people believe in once you have the one rookie, you move on. You know, if you want to upgrade your copy, you sell the copy you have and you just upgrade. I'm the opposite. I'm like, if you if you want every single, you know, Ronaldinho rookie that's been graded, go for it. Like if that's your thing, if that's your, you know, your sticker, like if it means something to you in some way that you feel connected to it, like I'm gonna call it hoarding. I love hoarding, you know, specific items. And you know, if they mean something special to you, they mean something special. So, and I know you're on the other side of the spectrum of, you know, you only need one, which I totally understand, but I'm just the opposite.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think again, I'm not being diplomatic. What annoys me more than anything is when someone offers very strong, like criticism of someone's collecting habits, which is weird because you think it wouldn't happen, but it does happen. As if there's like a right way
all the time. All the time.
It's like there's a right way. There's a right way and a wrong way to collect, and there's actually not. You know, like if there is a wrong way, I think it's, you know, like, I don't know how to say it, but speculating on something when you just want a return out of something, if that's the wrong way. But then I'd argue that's not even collecting. Exactly. If it's an organic collector doing what they want, I hate it when people judge it, if I'm honest. And
100%, I totally agree. It's like, I don't know why it affects you, you know, the person playing. It's like I said, I've gotten, especially back in the day when these stickers were much hotter, like I was getting some pretty like nasty messages, like, you know, why, like people would message
monopolizing
like, hey,
type accusations.
They're like, hey, I just want to buy one. And I'm like, oh, you know, I'm just not interested in selling. And they're like, that's ridiculous. You have 15 copies. Like, you need to just sell. And I'm like, last time I checked, I don't have to sell anything.
Yeah.
People would just be aggressive because, they are hard to find, especially at that time. At that time, I owned probably like 50% of the pop. And, so people, thought I was monopolizing. I'm like, well, I'm not selling. Like, I've sold one Ronaldinho and it was raw. And it still pains me. Like, I was like, why did the money was nice and I went and bought, more cards that I liked. But I've sold one of the, I don't know, 18, 20 that I've had. And I still hate the fact that I've even sold one. So, I'm not. That's why I thought it was funny. People are like, "Oh, you're monopolizing. You're trying to control the market." I'm like, I'm not selling. Like these are stickers that are still still in my collection. I have no plans on ever selling them. Maybe if I ever want to consolidate into like a one big item, but people are just funny about it.
Yeah, I think I think the way I see it, and it's not like a criticism. It's more just a personal choice in the sense that the way much like what I said earlier, in terms of trying to focus on things that I would never get rid of, and then I sort of almost have if I do think about the financial component, it's almost like a Moneyball approach. Whereas I've already, and that's actually often, especially in the last year or so, I've moved away from high grade stuff on certain occasions, and I've kind of thought, well, I'm quite happy with this particular item or this particular copy. I don't really care about a higher grade in this, but there are some exceptions, and I don't really know why I arbitrarily draw exceptions to certain items versus others. Normally it's Mario Balotelli related, but the sort of, I was so tempted to bring up Balotelli when you mentioned about the barriers that Friedenreich went through, and I was just like, well, the true GOAT Balotelli had to face many as well.
Well, he decided to light fireworks off in his house, so that obviously I miss him. Although I think he's actually about to go play in Brazil, I heard. So
really,
I think he's about to play for like Corinthians. I might be wrong. Someone's going to correct me. But I think I saw a rumor.
But it's almost, as I was saying, it's almost like a Moneyball type thing where it's like, I want the best collection for me. And therefore it's like, well, duplicates don't really work in my composite, in my making of that for me. But I quite like it when someone wants duplicates, because it's different as well. It shows you how different everyone is.
100%. Without a doubt.
And the only thing that annoys me is when people criticize stuff, and it's just like, I don't understand why you care. Like, just go and find one yourself. Do the work this person's done to go and find one yourself. It's kind of like,
exactly, yeah.
But
that's what I would say is like, people would always message me, hey, I'm willing to even pay over market. And I'd be like, I'm just not interested. And that's when they'd, I think, get really mad. I'm like, because they did not want to put in the work, which, like I've said a few times, it's just, that's why I'm connected to so many of these items. It is such a process. And you collect tickets. I know tickets are like beyond. It's the same thing. Like you have to do all this research. Talk to people over Google Translate. Trying to figure out how to get these items, and then someone just it's like, oh, I want to buy it. And it's like, that's great, but like.
Yeah,
I don't want to sell it. Congrats.
Exactly, and then the answer is always it's not for sale because then if you were, and I've never said it, if you were to say a figure that you'd sell something for, then you'd be like accused of being some like weird person. So it's actually easy just to say it's not. Oh, you're just your price. You just extortion. And it's just like I don't. So it's easy just to say it's not for sale because it's Yeah.
I always just say I'm like it's a price that would just be so ridiculous that like you would tell me. Immediately no. Like that's what I was kind of saying is like it's just a price that means so much to me that you could not ever pay it. And so most people from there just move on. Like I said,
exactly.
The nastier messages came when the market was much different, and people were just trying to buy things, flip them. So,
and that's the irony is that I don't think like true collectors. It sounds so conceited, but I don't think actual collectors would get annoyed about that, but it's often the people looking for a margin. It's like, oh no, he's ruining my margin, or oh, I've got a plug with all these Ronaldinho rookies or something. And it's like, no, this is someone that's sharing their collection, that is proud of their collection, that they've gone to source these items themselves. So why should they have to give them up?
Yeah, I never understand it. It's a battle. I don't see it as much anymore. But yeah, people definitely have different mindsets on on how things should go. That's how I'm going to put it.
And we saw it with the tickets thing. I mean, because early 2022 in tickets was a crazy time. And actually, I think I wasn't even collecting tickets for that long prior to that. Probably only about 15, 16 months actually. But what happened in January 2020 was crazy, and just the amount of people that would come in almost saying like very false information about certain items and things, and looking for margins. And it was a weird time, and I'm actually so much happier that those times have passed actually.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Like it's, obviously it was 2022 was a crazy time, and don't get me wrong, I was able to move on from some items that I did care less about, and was able to turn that into cards that I care a lot more about. But I agree, it's much more collecting focused now, and much more, I think people who are interested in truly learning, about the items, learning about how to do the work to go find these items. A few years ago, it was just like, how can I as quickly as possible get this without having to put in a minute of my own time. So yeah, I agree. It's shifted quite a bit.
Yeah, and then the next side, because we mentioned as well, you're an eclectic collector. You collect loads of cards, obviously, but then you also collect albums whole albums as well. And it's another Brazilian item as well. The next item. So should we have a chat? And another very famous player.
Yes.
So should we have a chat about your next item?
100%. Yeah, I do have a few albums and I'm trying to get more into it. It was something that, as I didn't grow up with album collecting, so when I first started getting into buying stickers, I never had a huge desire to get into albums, just because again, I didn't collect them as a kid. But over time, I've kind of just been interested in, how they were used in Brazil. So anyway, I'm going to move on to talking about the item, which is this album, which is the 1971 Coleção, Titulares de Ouro. And the reason that this album is even important at all, if I can quickly find the page, somewhere in here, is this sticker, which is Zico as a very, very young kid. It's his rookie sticker, first ever sticker for Flamengo. And Zico definitely has a cult following, especially in Brazil. He is Flamengo's number one idol. That's what they call him, idol. And so, I am a big Zico collector. I think I'm number one on the registry for Zico, and anytime I see a new Zico I don't have, I immediately will just pick it up, just because I'm really interested in what he accomplished. And when I really got into soccer, and like I mentioned, 2010, I did what everyone does. I got on YouTube, and I'm like, best goals compilation, best skills, whatever whatever you type in on YouTube to watch random soccer clips. And Zico is one of the players that I saw clips of, and especially the free kicks. He was a free kick expert. And I don't know, when I was growing up with that, I just found it very interesting. And then when I got into soccer collecting, I just was like, that's a player that I would love to collect. And I again enjoyed, like I said, my theme. A lot of the players that I really like to collect are players that were just love to play the game. Were just there to just make people happy. Just played again for the love of the game. And I consider Zico one of those players. But when it comes to this album, it's the Zico rookie alone is very, very hard to find, and to be able to find it stuck in an album with most of the album completed is a piece that I just consider very unique. Because you can always take and remove a sticker from an album, but no one nowadays is sticking a sticker into an album, especially of that value. So, these kind of items are just so unique, hard to find. There's probably not going to be very many more that surface. But I think what I find very interesting about albums in Brazil is just how they were used, and what they kind of show how soccer was at the time that the album was produced. Like, who was truly, the famous players that were, making noise and who people considered to be the idols at the time. And I also just love how they use these for marketing. Like, these were all just used by companies to get, customers to buy more products at whatever store that they were offered at. So, like, if you look at these albums, they're always missing one sticker per page because, like McDonald's, these companies were smart and they would always short print one sticker. Because, to clarify, if you look at the front of the album, it tells you, if you fill out the full first page or the full second page, you get a hat. Your prize is a hat. So it has like the full prize list of all the different prizes. And what they would do is make it almost impossible to get one of the stickers on each page. So that way they didn't have to give out the prizes because, then they would be losing money if they had to give out a bunch of hats and bicycles and all this other stuff. So I just found it it's a very interesting marketing technique.
I think they did they do that with the Gaudi as well. I think they did it with they did it with the Gaudi, didn't they?
Yeah, some of the older baseball sets have that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading a story about that, and then just basically there was one card or sticker or whatever it was that wasn't even. I think it wasn't even made or something. I don't even know.
It wasn't made, but I think a few copies have escaped. I don't want to say it's the LaJoy. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look, but it's exactly that.
Yeah.
Like they these companies were smart, and they did this just to get customers to come in and spend their money.
Yeah. McDonald's Monopoly as well. We have here. I don't know if the McDonald's Monopoly have been accused of doing this weird stuff as well.
There's a famous TV show here that was done on HBO, like a documentary, essentially on the scam that was McDonald's Monopoly, just because it turned into essentially it turned out that people were buying them before they even went out to the public, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Although I was happy just with free fries or free McFlurries, to be honest.
I was like, I know I'm not going to win the $100,000, whatever. I was like, just give me the McDouble and we'll move on.
Yeah.
But like I kind of mentioned, when I was going over this album, on this album in specific, on the last page, I really love, which is, it says at the top of the page, it says, with the extra stickers you have from this collection, pick a starting lineup, pick your favorite starting lineup and put the stickers here. So I'll show the one that's in my album, which is fully filled out, which is just really cool. So you have the full team that in 1971, someone decided this is my starting 11 if I'm putting together a team.
Yeah, Matt, bring it slightly more into the middle because it chops off the thing. So yeah, that's it. Perfect. That's it. Yeah, that's amazing.
So, you have obviously, the number one there being Pele. So, obviously 1971, Pele had just won his third World Cup. And so he's, of course he's going to have a second sticker that someone's going to put in there. But then you have, Rivellino, who at the time, again, had just won a World Cup with Brazil. And he's a star, probably the best player in the world at that point, Rivellino. Tostão also could potentially be the best player in the world at that point. Gerson, a lot of just, insane players. But I just love, when you get an item like this, some kid in 1971, put all of these extra stickers and took the time to decide, this is my starting 11. So you can kind of get from, 50 years ago, this is who people in Brazil considered to be, the star players, the best players. And it always makes me think, in 50 years from, 2024, who are going to be the players that people remember. So I was just trying to think about that with my collecting, because obviously there's the obvious, Messi and Ronaldo, but it's like, besides them, who are the other players that when you look back would be on a page like that you would have in your starting 11. So I don't know. I just love the album. I think it's such a unique piece, and it's just besides having the Zico rookie, it's just a fun soccer piece of memorabilia in history.
Yeah, it is cool, and I think it. You mentioned about the sort of Brazilian kid that would have made that best 11 of his, and actually with the next item, it's sort of someone that means quite a lot to you, and it was your favourite player growing up. But actually, this is not soccer we're talking about with the next item.
Not. It's the one non-soccer item, and I collect very little non-soccer. So to make it into my collection as a non-soccer player, you definitely have to be up there, which is why Zack Greinke, who I'm not
have to tell me about him.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like a lot of people on this channel might not even know who that is, which is why I love being able to talk about him. So I grew up in Kansas City. I spent my whole childhood in Kansas City, and our baseball teams, the Royals, they were garbage. Like by far the worst team many years. Losing 100+ games a year out of 162, like very, very bad teams. But one player, in my opinion, really, despite that, kind of put up amazing performances, which was Zack Greinke. So he was a pitcher, and he, was an amazing pitcher. He won what's called the Cy Young Award, which is like the best pitcher of the year, despite, again, playing for a team that was hot garbage, and, just being stuck on a team like that. But one of the reasons I really like Zack Greinke is that he has a very interesting history. So when he first started, in the early 2000s, he dealt with a lot of anxiety, a lot of social issues, and he actually at one point quit baseball. Like he decided he was just not going to play anymore, despite being one of the best young players out there. But he was able to kind of overcome that through different ways, and eventually made it back onto the field. And when he came back, he was an amazing pitcher. He's had an amazing career. He just left the Royals last year. And let me clarify, he played for a few different teams after the Royals. He and then went back to the Royals to finish his career. But I just really like his story of like overcoming that anxiety, and I think a lot of people can understand what it's like to deal with some of those things, and despite that, overcoming it, being an amazing pitcher. And if anyone is unfamiliar with Zack Greinke, I recommend again going to YouTube, typing in Zack Greinke best moments, and he's just a funny guy. Like I don't even know how to put it, but he's just like, he's not like, he doesn't talk a lot, but when he does, it's very funny, and like he just has some hilarious moments that are like very iconic in baseball. He's hit, I think, like 9 home runs as a pitcher, which is like, as a pitcher, you are never expected to even hit the ball. So the fact that he has home runs, is pretty crazy. And so he's a fun player that, like, when I grew up in Kansas City, I just really, really enjoyed watching him. And for that, I felt the need to get to collect his rainbow from his rookie year. So luckily in 2002 Bowman Chrome, there's only 4 cards. There's the Chrome, the Refractor out of, I can't remember, the X-Fractor, and the Gold, which is out of 50. So I was able to complete the full set, and obviously there's only 50 of the Gold, so there's only so many of these even out there. I think there's only a few 10s, so I was really happy to get a PSA 9. It's just an amazing card. Like I just really like Zack Greinke. Just think he's a cool story, cool guy, and just has provided, like I keep kind of harping on this whole hour we've been talking, like a lot of these items are just, they have a connection to me in some way from sports in the past. So
yeah, and it's a really, and the Bowman Chromes are sort of like, are they like often almost the pre-rookies in a way for baseball, or
exactly.
Yeah, that's what my understanding of it is.
Yep. They're when the player is just getting drafted. They're like playing for the Arsenal B team, the Arsenal Academy. So they've made it to that level of they're most likely going to make the professional senior team. but they're not there yet. So yeah, it's kind of like that pre rookie card.
Yeah,
And they
and
go for crazy money.
Yeah, and like so like even a player. I mean, you don't want to talk about finance stuff, but even a player like I say even a player, but Zack Greinke is, I presume, is very very good pitcher, but not the most desired player.
No,
so
definitely not.
would that even be a very like expensive card because it's a gold Bowman rookie, or how does it? What's that sort? How does it sort of work?
It's not a cheap card. Like I definitely had to pay a pretty penny. But there is in Greinke's case, I would say he's like a fringe Hall of Famer. So there is in the back of some people's minds like maybe he's worth buying in the hopes that if he does, because in baseball card collecting, like the Hall of Fame is the pinnacle. Like your card prices go nuclear if you like. There's the obvious players, like a player like I don't know, Derek Jeter. Like everyone knew, like he's gonna make.
I know him.
So yes. So I'm trying to think of a player that like anyone would know. So a player like that, obviously his card prices like they factored in the whole time he's gonna make the Hall of Fame because he's had an incredible career. Greinke's the kind of player where you're taking like I didn't buy it with I did not like if he makes the Hall, great. If he doesn't, great. Like I think he should, but I just bought it because I really wanted the card. But there is the thought that like if he does make the Hall, his cards would probably go up a bit. But that in baseball, that is like the deciding factor on your like long term card values because there's just so many like set collectors of Hall of Fame, of the Baseball Hall of Fame. So
and I think there are players that resonate with me. I'm not going to bring it up again, but it's just it's there are some players that just kind of resonate with us individually, and like Jamie Vardy I really love, Kante I really love. There's some players I think Kante is universally quite popular, but there's some players that just you will love and then you will want their cards. It's just how it works. And Greinke, like you say, sounds like is a very good pitcher for the Kansas City Royals. Sorry, pitcher's the one that throws, right? They
sometimes he's one of my favorite things about him is he like because when you say Conte, it kind of reminded me of him. It's like when there was rumors that he was going to quit baseball, I think in like 05 or 06, he said that he wanted to go and mow lawns. Like that's what he wanted to do as a career, is just like be a lawnmower. And I don't know, like he's just to be a very down to earth guy because he's like, for him, he doesn't seemingly care about the fame or like because he's very like anti-camera. Like he's never in the limelight. Like he is very much like as far out of like being in the publicity. So he's very like to me Conte, where just very down to earth, like just there to like do their job. His job is to pitch, so like he's going to be the best damn pitcher, and then after that he's going to go home and you're not going to hear about him. And so that's he just really resonated with me when I was growing up.
I think this is the first baseball item we've seen on Desert Island Slabs, and I've really enjoyed speaking about this one. And it looks like, can you just bring it up again? Because it actually looks like a really beautiful card as well. It's a facsimile auto, is it? Or is that an on-card? Yeah. I couldn't tell exactly, but it's just a beautiful card, actually.
The design of this year is amazing, and the refractors that they did, in the late 90s to early 2000s, like I feel like refractors just don't have the same shine anymore that they used to have. But that set is amazing, and it is a popular set because I think there's a baseball Hall of Famer in there, Joe Mauer. So it is a popular set just because it does have a Hall of Famer in it. The card like visually is stunning, and I'll send you a picture afterwards. Maybe you can post it on here. Is the full rainbow that I have, and all of them to me look amazing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I love the refractors. Like the refractors from that year, they just pop. Like the cards just pop.
Yeah, it's almost because there's almost I really like it, and I think we spoke about me and Fab. I think we've spoken about this not on Desert Island Slabs quite a few times, but I quite like lots of a solid color.
Yes.
And that gold, like, just solid. I don't want to
Yes.
talk about PMGs or anything like that, but it's really like a nice image, and it's like a sunset, and he's just like looking just at the camera, just ready to pitch the ball,
Pitch away.
and yeah, it's just great. It's just a really nice card.
No, it's like you said. I kind of agree with you and Fav. Like, I much prefer the. I'm starting to like. I've noticed in the last year or two really dislike the parallels where just the border is colored. Like, I love the full color. Like, that's why obviously 2017 Chrome Soccer is so popular. I think one of the reasons is just that full bleed color. Like, just amazing. Like, it truly changes the whole card. It makes it much more unique to me than just changing just the border of the card. So yeah, I love the gold. Love the gold on this card.
It's a really nice card, and I'm really pleased that we got to speak about this. And I'm actually going to go and look at some of these interviews after we stop recording as well, because he sounds like an interesting. Yeah, please do.
And I should say it's funny because like a lot of my collecting friends that know me, like they're not gonna. I'm not a big baseball person, so I think they're gonna laugh because like they're gonna be like the fact that you didn't put Patrick Mahomes, because being from Kansas City, like Mahomes is like my favorite player by far. I think a lot of people are gonna be very surprised that I put a baseball card, but like I said, it's. At the end of the day, a lot of these cards are what means a lot to me, and this is a card that, besides meaning a lot to me, it also just doesn't. The gold like never comes up because it's numbered out of 50, and so it's a very limited card to begin with. So I never even see them come up.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's like what we spoke about at the beginning with the beginning question, in terms of if you just imagine. I know it's a bit, it's a bit obviously silly in some way. It's not silly. Desert Island Slabs is great, but it's just you have to imagine if you were going to a desert island, what items would you like around you that you would continually get something from. So this card clearly does that for you.
Exactly.
And I love hearing the stories because it's a great card, but it's not just the card. It's he's from Kansas, or he played for Kansas, and and the next item as well, which is something I am more familiar with, and the tournament I'm more familiar with because it was a fantastic tournament actually, and also a brand of item I'm a lot more familiar with as well. So, should we have a chat about your next item?
Yes. So, amazing tournament, like you said. I was lucky enough, in 2014, to go down to Brazil to watch the FIFA World Cup. My dad and I decided, I had been studying Portuguese in college, and being a soccer fan, I was like, Dad, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And he's not the biggest soccer fan, but he enjoys it. Like, he will gladly go to a game and watch it. So he's like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's go down there. And so we decided we're gonna go and go see some games, explore Brazil. It was our first time ever down there. And so, we went to 3 games. We went to Costa Rica, England. We went to Switzerland.
No.
I know. That game. So, actually, I have the ticket here. And, okay, so I really like this ticket because it has my name on it. Because when you sign up for the World Cup, like, they put your name on it. So, because they were very anti-scalping for the tournament.
Yeah.
If I can get some focus on here, maybe. There we go.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see my name in the middle, but like, this game was something. Because to give context to people who don't know this game, this was the last group game where England were already eliminated from the World Cup after a pretty yikes World Cup, and it finished 0-0. I remember that. It was the last game for Lampard and Gerrard, for the in the World Cup, but it was a crazy game. I remember I was sitting in the upper deck. It was in Belo Horizonte and at the Mineirão Stadium, and like I'm watching the England fans just fighting the police, and just this crazy experience, like just some very drunk fans just going at it, and having to watch just a brutal 0-0 game. It was quite the experience. But I guess I should go back to what the item actually is, because
Yeah.
that's a precursor to the item, which is, after the Switzerland Ecuador match, our last match was USA versus Portugal, and so that's my item, is the USA versus Portugal,
Yeah.
which hopefully I can get some focus there. So unfortunately, this ticket doesn't have my name on it, and I'll give a backstory as to why. And we had briefly talked about this before we joined. We started shooting this video, but when my dad and I, agreed to go down to Brazil, he said one of the things that is a requirement if we go is that we do a kayaking trip in the Amazon. And I was like, my mind, I was like, you know what, that sounds awful to me, but I just want to go to Brazil to see the World Cup. So like whatever you say, like okay, like let's do it. I guess we're going to the Manaus, and Manaus is the main city, in the Brazilian Amazon region, and the river goes right by it, and it's actually where the two rivers meet, to kind of form the Amazon. So we we go to Manaus, and before the game, we had a 5-day kayaking trip where it was like on a river that joins into the Amazon River. And so it's 5 days off the grid. Like when I say off the grid, I mean like literally, like we are in the middle of nowhere, hours away from Manaus, no service. And I'm gonna cut a 2-hour debacle into like 2 minutes to save time. But essentially, everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. Like there was a point where, my dad and I are floating in this river, thinking we're like potentially like literally gonna die. So great bonding experience. But what comes out of that is, we trade the people we were with. Two of the guys wanted to sit closer to like the USA. I don't want to call them ultras because we definitely do not have real ultras. But they wanted to sit closer to like, I think they're called like the Outlaws or something. And we're like we don't care, like we'll switch seats. So this guy Sharon, we switched seats. So unfortunately, my ticket is. I'm actually putting a bounty out there. If anyone can find my ticket from the game, I'll gladly pay like $1,000 just to have the ticket with my name on it. But eventually after this horrible kayaking trip where our literal physical belongings were floating in this river because we tipped over our canoe, like someone's canoe, and again, I'm cutting a very horrible story into a very short story. It was just definitely the most like insane experience of my life. So like that whole trip to Manaus is like a moment I will never forget. And then after this horrible trip, the next day we get back and we go to the soccer game. Amazing game. The game was amazing, 2-2. Got to see Cristiano Ronaldo, up close and personal. Just an amazing game. USA actually putting up a fight against a powerhouse team. Just fueled again my love for the sport, and I don't know, it's just means a lot to me for a lot of different reasons. Spending the time with my dad, getting to go down to Brazil, really cementing my love for soccer, and seeing the World Cup is like nothing else. Like it is truly like the pinnacle of soccer, and getting to see all of these these fans from across the world coming to see their teams, and all just enjoy the sport that we all love. So I just love this ticket. Love that I somehow got it back all the way to the U.S. and 8 years later got it graded after the World Cup. I don't know, just an amazing item. Like I just love it.
Amazing item, and an amazing tournament from a football perspective as well. So many things that happened in that tournament. I mean, Van Persie's header is something that I will be ingrained in my memory forever. And then obviously 100%. that apocalyptic semi-final as well. That was just
I left the day before that, and I was like, thank God I left, because I did not want to be there for the aftermath of that game. And I still remember one of the best moments was, two of the guys, there were 6 of us on the kayaking trip, and 2 of the guys were English. And, we finally get cell service like in the middle of this town. We're driving back to Manaus. And so we're all like, the first thing we're doing is like, what happened in the World Cup the last 5 days while we're off the grid. And, we see the video of like Suarez taking a bite of Chiellini, and like we're like, what the hell? Like what was happening? And of course they see like the England results, so they're like bummed out. They're like, what are we like? So we just missed, us getting knocked out pretty much of the tournament. I don't know. It was just a crazy tournament, and like you said, just so many amazing moments happened in that tournament. James went crazy, and just a fun time.
It was a great tournament, and I love the ticket design as well from that tournament. Obviously, it's the Kazki. It's a really nice ticket, and I really love the Spain Netherlands ticket I've got of that, and it just pairs with, in my opinion, the greatest kaboom of all time. So
I love that kaboom.
It's just the best kaboom of all time, and it's just a great tournament, and and we're going to go way back now. Actually, we're going to go back over from the 2014 to even then, well over a century, and we're going to go back. We're going to go to some. Maybe the origins of die-cut cards in some ways. I don't know. I'm speculating. But shall we have a chat about your next item, or a group of items actually, forms your next choice?
Yeah, it's being a vintage collector, I collect everything in soccer. Like we started at the beginning, but I do love vintage. I truly, eventually after I'd been collecting, wanted to have items that I considered to be like the start of soccer collecting, which, if you're unfamiliar with, is Baines cards. So Baines cards were shield designs. They were, like you said, die cuts, starting in, the mid 1880s. Actually, like the first packs of cards in the world were Baines, like the first time cards were ever issued in packs. To me, they are essentially the beginning of, what I am sitting here at my desk collecting is these Baines cards, and why we even have all of these cards in the first place. A few years ago I was lucky enough to be able to buy a Raisbeck shield, and he's a former Liverpool player, a defender, one of, I'd say, like a top 10 pre-war English players, Premier League players. Yeah, Premier League, not English, but in the Premier League.
No, I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, so don't want to offend anyone. That's the main thing. No offense. He's one of the top 10, English league players that people collect. And so I was able to grab one, and then once I got it in hand, I was like, this item is amazing. Like the fact that, again, that these have survived 100 years, 100 plus years, and there's so many different designs. It's extremely rare to find even the name. Like a lot of them are just like team shields, so it'll just say the name of the team, or it'll have like a action shot or something. So to be able to get ones that actually have the picture of a specific player with their name on it is where it gets even more rare. And then getting one that's of a player that people know nowadays, you start to get to these like 1%, less than 1% chance of finding them out of all these shields. So I was able to talk with a pretty big English dealer who happened to have 2 more Raisbecks, and I was like, I don't even care, like whatever the price is, like I just want them to go with the one I have. And so I was, luckily he was willing to part ways, because that's with these things, it's like getting people to part with some of these items. It's like they know once they let them go, the chances of seeing it is, there's a good chance they'll just never see another copy. That's what really made it for me, is these items that have made it. I've never seen other copies of these 3. The fact they made it, considering kids, when they got these shields, like a lot of them have so much damage, and I don't know if you know this story, but like kids would throw them, like as a game, they would throw them against the wall. Like they would throw their shields against the wall, and like whoever landed the closest to like I think it was like a set mark or something, they would win all the other person's shields. So like if you look at a lot of the shields, they have these like huge chunks missing because kids would sit there like throwing them at the wall. So again, it's amazing that these items, made it 120 years after dealing with so much. And so I don't know. It's just items that I just feel very strongly that are just so important to, because I collect soccer and vintage soccer, like these being the beginning of that market and that collecting. Like, to me, they're very important to have in my collection, just because it's what I base so much of what I collect around. So I don't have necessarily like a personal collection, personal connection in any way, because I'm definitely not a Liverpool fan, and anything like that. But I just love the importance they have to like soccer collecting as a whole.
Yeah, and it's like I mean, I haven't had that many Baines cards in my. Like, I've only got one left now. Ironically, a USA one, which I shared the other day. But it's when I first, I think I got Jimmy Quinn Baines card first, and it was. They were actually quite a lot bigger than I thought they'd be for some reason. Like they were a lot. Huge. They were a lot wider. I wasn't expecting them to be quite so wide, actually, and I thought they were almost like a little shield, but they're actually quite big. And they've got so much detail to them.
Oh yeah.
And they've clearly had a lot of effort going into them being designed as well, and they're just always. They're so it's not even just the shield in many ways. They're so recognizable with their design, like the inset photo on a lot of them, and then the more action shot. And I just love the color ones. Although I'm interested. What's your favorite one of the three, or do you like them all?
I personally love the blue one. I don't know what it is about it. I think it's just super unique and amazing. But again, I've asked people. I posted one time, kind of wondering what people thought was the best of the three, and a lot of people picked the brown one.
That's what I would go for. That's what.
Which is funny, which again just shows like a lot of people might think one way, but you might just have something just resonates with you, and the blue, for some reason, the color of it, I just love it. Like, don't have a good reasoning why, but I kind of ask a lot of the time on Instagram. I try to post these polls, like, I'll post 2 cards and say, like, which, design do you prefer? And I always think a lot of these things are going to go one way and they completely go, like, the opposite way. And I'm like, oh, okay. I would have never thought that. So it's kind of amazing how every single person, has a different view.
Eye appeal is very subjective. I think the reason I like the brown one is that I like the detail on his face. It's almost far more like sketched, like portrait that I think I quite enjoy, and it reminds me. I don't want to speak almost about the sort of military connotations of the war, but it reminds me of almost like a sort of portrait, a very wartime portrait of someone, and I quite like that. And then the blue one I also I like the other one as well, but the other one reminds me more of the other Baines cards I've seen, the sort of colour one, and so. That one I do like, but that one reminds me a bit more. But the other ones I really, really like, and that brown one's really lovely.
It is. But I do agree. I love the brown having the full portrait, like, taking up much more of the card. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I struggle with all. I would never be able to let any of them go though. So
no, yeah, exactly. And especially when you've got the 3, then it's like, well. Are there others around for Raisbeck? There may be. I don't know. I have no idea.
I would assume there has to be.
Yeah.
I have not seen any. It's one of those things with Baines where it's like you'll just never have seen. Like I kind of said with Friedenreich, you'll have never seen one, and then all of a sudden, a Liverpool collector will be like, "Oh, I've had this Raisbeck for 25 years," and you're like, "Yeah, would have never known this existed if you never posted it." So. I hope, my goal would be to hopefully find in the next 10 years, like 1 or 2 more. I'd love to have like 5, I don't know why, but 5 would be a great number to have of like different Raisbecks.
Yeah, but then it'll get 6, then it'll be 6.
That's the problem is I can't stop. So yeah.
But it's like the infinite game. It's the long-term project. That's the way I see it all. It's, I think a lot of us are in it for forever, really. So it's just, I'm just going to continually accumulate things forever. And now we're coming to the end. Actually, we're coming to the end. The final item. It's been such a wonderful chat. And what should we have a chat about your final item? It's not a card. It's something
It's not
very
a card.
different, and it's the first type of this item we're seeing on Desert Island Slabs. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Should we have a chat about it?
No, for sure. Over the last like year and a half, 2 years, I've become much more interested in Type 1 photos. So, a Type 1 photo being an original copy or used from the original negative within 2 years of it being taken. And I just love photos because obviously, there's so many photos out there, but a handful, if you find the right ones, truly bring moments, to a permanent, bring that memory into a permanent way to display it. So with this photo that I was able to purchase not that long ago, I think even this year, was from the Stanley Matthews, testimonial match. And when you start to look at it, I first saw, Stanley Matthews testimonial, like, that's pretty cool. Like, he's one of the greatest players all time, Ballon d'Or winner, forever, in the history of soccer. But then you start to look at the picture and you're like, is that who I think it is, like, in the background? Like, who, like, and, and I was, like, looking at who was actually at the testimonial, and you start to see that Puskas was at the testimonial, Di Stefano, Yashin, casually, you have Lev Yashin, who's arguably, the greatest goalkeeper of all time, holding up, Stanley Matthews in a picture. It's I just love this photograph, and obviously the fact that it has so many of the greatest players, to impact soccer history. Makes it just such a cool item, and one that is so unique to me. And I had this really cool moment happen. At least to me, it was cool, and I did kind of feel arrogant at the time. But someone posted, in a Discord I was in, they're like, "This, I love this picture," and it was just a picture from Google of that image, and I was like, I literally own, the like actual photograph that was taken of that, and I don't know, it's just so cool because, like I said, that's a moment, like, that is a very historic moment in the history of soccer. And as we were kind of discussing before we started recording, testimonials, up until more recently, like, they were truly the grouping of, like, the greatest players at the time, like the biggest stars who, these players played against, to kind of show respect of, like, you played against, all these stars at the World Cup, at these international tournaments and the European competitions. We're kind of showing our respect that, you were a great opponent. Like, we, of course, at the time probably didn't like you because, you were trying to beat us. But, now that you're retiring, we can kind of show our respect, for what you helped, how you changed the game and what you did. So I just love this image. And like I said, probably going to send this one to PSA soon because I do want to get it into a slab, but just so I can display it easier. But it's just such a cool image, and there's just so many, like, insane names in the photo.
It's amazing. I mean, I actually pulled up like a lineup list here, and like obviously Lev Yashin, Eusebio, Di Stefano, Puskas, Gento, Copper, Mazepust, Popluhar, all golden players. John Charles. And England, you've got the sort of British 11 almost. You've got the kind. I don't know why John Charles, is in the international 11, but it's Stan's 11, so he's made his own like lineup. And Jimmy Greaves, Bobby Moore. I'll bring up the list of all the It's incredible, and the image as well. I mean, you're on Lev Yashin and Ferenc Puskas, being carried off the pitch. I mean,
it's
an incredible. How did you? Was it just like a lucky eBay find then, or what? How did you find this one?
Yeah, it was just an eBay find. Like, it was listed in Sweden, which is extremely random. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is, I know a lot of people don't understand photo collecting, which again, if you don't like it, totally understand. Like, it is definitely very unique and niche, but as soon as I saw it, like I said, some of these images are just amazing. So, like, seeing, I don't even know how many Ballon d'Ors are in this picture, but there's multiple, Ballon d'Or winners in this picture. celebrating Matthews, who again, that's someone whose name is gonna stay, like, it'll stand the test of time, just because of his impact in England and for soccer. So I don't know. I just saw it on eBay. It was up for auction, and immediately I was like, whatever it takes. Like, I'm gonna be happy. This is coming home to the U.S. So I don't know. It was just a very lucky eBay find. One of those things where you just kind of can't believe it that it's just casually listed, for auction. So
amazing item. And just you can imagine. I don't know which stadium the match took place in. Was it at Stokes Ground by any chance?
I'm trying to remember. I have the back of the picture, and there's what I love about a lot of the photos that were Type 1 is they have like the press kind of like description on the back. So I should have what the press actually wrote about him. I can't remember where it was taking place. And of course,
I'll have a look after. I'll bring it up.
Yeah, I'll have to look. I can't find the picture right now. But
no, it's an amazing photo. And is that something that you have explored quite a lot of then, the Type 1 photo collecting? Or
I'm really starting to get into it. It's one of those ones where it's it takes a lot of research. Especially I really want to find special photos, and I've been talking to some baseball photo collectors I know, and I'm trying to understand how did they get some of these photos, and from talking to them it's going to be kind of back to what I was doing 4 or 5 years ago, working with international connections. Probably going to be the same thing where I have to start researching, finding some of these collections, these photographers in, Brazil, and because I'd love to find, some Type 1s of, Pele scoring goals and stuff like that. But I just think it's a unique area for, like I said, I don't love just, random photos of, Pele in 1972 just, standing there. Like, to me, that doesn't do much. But the photos that have those specific memories, those specific moments that are like forever important to soccer, those I'm really starting to try and figure out, because I look at some of the baseball Type 1s that exist out there, and I love them. Like the 52 mantle, the photo they use for the 52 mantle, like to me that's such a cool fact that there's a Type 1 of that.
Yeah.
So I would love to find some of the Type 1s for the major Pele rookies, the Maradona, 1977, some of those key iconic, and I shouldn't even be saying this because, now people are probably like, oh, I'm gonna start.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Yeah.
But, I want to find some of these Type 1s for like cards that we consider to be iconic. I would love to find the Type 1s. It's just going to be a lot of work, but, it's, again, when you finally, I kind of miss that because I've just haven't had as much time to really be doing it anymore, but I do miss the hunt of finding that item you've been looking for, and like when you get it, it's just like the feeling is crazy. So I don't know. I've been exploring it a lot more, and I love the idea of Type 1 photos, and I do think in a few years soccer they could pick up in popularity.
Yeah, it's something which intrigues me. I haven't gone down. I think a lot of it is due to the timing element, because when I love collecting, and I don't treat it like a job, but in many ways I sometimes do, like the way I research things, I try and be quite thorough. So I'm like, I need to have the headspace to commit to this properly, because I'm not just gonna buy stuff willy-nilly. I'm gonna need to know exactly what I want before. Which isn't what I did when I came into the hobby. I don't think people do that when they come into the hobby necessarily. They just start, getting this left, right, and centre. Whereas as you get more used to things, it's like, well, Type 1 photos do interest me, but I'd have to think, what would I want to collect myself, and think about, like the Beckham like Type 1 of his Wimbledon goal celebration would be amazing. A version of that.
Exactly.
But again, probably not too easy to find. But it's
definitely not. But once whenever it's found, it's like it's amazing. And like you said, it's really narrowing it down, because when I first got into photos, I was just buying any photo of like famous players I could find. But then I was sitting there, I was like, it doesn't do anything for me if it's just a picture of Pele, because I can, find plenty of pictures of him. But it's those moments that, again, bring back something like a type 1 of the Van Persie header would be like so cool. Again, those moments where you're just never going to forget. You just got to be very specific in targeting.
Yeah, and it showed. I said it with Laura the last episode, in terms of it's kind of. I said exactly the same thing in terms of it's just like, I'm not going to go start looking for Pele type ones, but now you've literally stimulated just in this conversation things that I might want to go and find a why always me type one, which would be probably my ultimate grail.
That would be amazing. And everyone, that's what I love about the photos, is like everyone has these different moments that mean so much to them. Like, obviously I love the why always me, not something I personally would necessarily want to type one photo of, but love that moment. But that's what's amazing, is like there's so many moments that when I sit there for 20 minutes and think about like what do I love about soccer, and there's so many different moments that each person, like, that's what connects you to the game and what draws you back to watching all these different things. So, like, I'd love like the Henry like knee slide like would be like a type 1 photo that like I would go crazy to find something like that. So there's just again, it goes back to like collecting is what you want it to be. If a specific moment means a lot to you, like there's different ways to immortalize it, whether it be a card, a ticket, a photo, which is why I love, like being eclectic with my collecting and not forcing it just to be cards, because there's just so many different ways to collect moments that mean so much to you. So
truly a hybrid collector. And I think that we've discussed every item, Matt. It's flown by.
Yes. I looked at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, you've given Champ a run for his money. Maybe not quite, but
he's someday. I don't know. But
it's it's been an amazing conversation. We've discussed 8 amazing items, and we've learned more about you, and I've absolutely loved doing that, because I've obviously seen your actually quite a few years ago now, actually, which is scary, because maybe like your videos that you used to do, like before I think I even spoke to you at all ever, and like your videos of when you found stuff open on Instagram, I think it was, and it's been amazing. I'm so happy and honoured to have you on Desert Island Slabs. I've loved hearing about your items.
It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed talking about it, and I really enjoy your questions and your commentary and your perspective. I think that's the biggest thing on a lot of how I learned to what I wanted to collect, was just hearing the perspective of how other people look at things. So again, thanks for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. Amazing guest. And thank you so much to everyone for watching or listening to this episode of Desert Island Slabs. Matt was absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to edit this and splice the images in so that you guys can see it. But for now, it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Matt.